Hey everybody, Jake here and welcome to the hobby. I am always more than happy to interact with you guys. That is why I asked you to send in your questions related to Pokemon card collecting, and I am more than happy to provide you my amateur opinion. We got a lot of questions to go through, so let's get right into it. First up, we have AlexBro23 who asks, is it financially irresponsible to buy vintage cards that I might not make a huge profit on simply because they're cool? That is a great question, Alex. And honestly, it's really up to you. At the end of the day, Pokemon cards are a luxury good. It really depends on what kind of budget you're working with, right? If you have a $1 million budget, buying a $5,000 card that might not go up in value simply because you think it's cool can actually be pretty okay. But if you're working with minimum wage or you're making 20 or 30 grand per year, that's probably not a good purchase to buy a $5,000 card. So it really depends on what kind of budget you're working with, how much you're willing to splurge. At the end of the day, Pokemon cards are a luxury good. So it's possible to splurge on something that you think is really appealing, even though it has no long-term value. People do that all the time. It's like going on traveling or having a nice dinner. It really depends on how much you're willing to splurge. Context is everything. Everyone's budget is different. It's really for you to decide if it's worth it to purchase this item or card or not. Next up, we have Max Dunn who asks, if I want to start seriously collecting and investing in Pokemon without breaking the bank, where is a good place to start? Update, I broke the bank on some unlimited base set. That is a great question, Max. People come to me with budgeting questions all the time. And honestly, I know a lot of people complain about how, oh, Jake, why do you make everything about the money? I try not to, but at the end of the day, Pokemon cards cost money. Pokemon cards aren't free. Everyone has a limited budget. Everyone's working with limited resources. So everyone's trying to stretch out the money as much as they can, try to get as much value inside their collection with what resources they have. The fact that you broke the bank, I don't recommend that. You know, don't ever go over your budget. Don't ever go over what you're comfortable with. Always stay within your budget. And honestly, unlimited base set, that's fine investing and collecting purchased. I'm totally fine with that. Great job, Max. What can you do if you don't have a lot of resources, which is money or budget to work with? Then I say work with what you do have. What you do have is time. So especially when I had a limited budget, I would really focus on trying to find really affordable auctions or anything of the sort that people weren't looking at that I knew I could potentially snipe for a pretty good deal. I do this a lot less now because my time is so limited. But if you have time as a resources, then definitely try to find some decent auctions. Try to use the resources you have and make your money stretch as much as possible. It's really up to you, but there are plenty of opportunities out there to get some really good deal on some amazing cards and really build out your collection. Next up, we have Fred Chang who asks, hey Jake, do you think CGC graded cards will see more desirability and value to match, even potentially surpass PSA in the future based on the fact that they seem to grade a lot more consistently? I don't really have enough CGC graded cards in my collection to really understand if they do grade more consistently. Could they potentially surpass PSA? I wouldn't say that it's impossible, but it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna be a slow climb for CGC to ever beat PSA. At the end of the day, PSA owns the majority market of graded Pokemon cards, and that's not something that's gonna change anytime soon. CGC has a great opportunity right now because honestly, PSA is kind of tripping over themselves. They have a golden opportunity right now with how well the Pokemon graded market is doing, but they're not really grasping this opportunity. PSA is really focused more on their signature service, their signature authentication service, as well as their sports card. PSA just has their eyes on other stuff rather than Pokemon. Pokemon's sort of like a side gig for PSA. They don't really take Pokemon's very seriously, which is something that I'm kind of disappointed. CGC does take Pokemon very seriously, and I hope that they can give PSA a run for their money. More competition is always great. There's nothing to really complain about with having more service options to choose from. And next up, we have Harvey, who asked, do you think the price of Shiny Star V will drop once Shining Fates is released in February? And perhaps you might see a small drop in prices, but long term, I think Shiny Star V will do just fine. In fact, if you look historically, the Japanese holiday sets actually do a lot better and perform a lot better than the English special sets. And one of the big reasons for that is that the Japanese sets are very conservative with their holiday print runs. They very rarely overprint anything. It's very conservative, and they don't often do reprints, and this means that they do perform better long term. So I think Shiny Star V is in a fine spot. It'll do just fine. It's a great set. Lots of people enjoy it, and I think I will continue to enjoy displaying, opening, and enjoying the cards long term. Next, we have Kay, who asks, how do you know what things to keep sealed for years and what things to open immediately if I pull a $50 plus card? Do I keep it or sell it quick? That is an extremely broad question, right? It really depends on you, depends on the card, depends on how much you enjoy the card. So you really have to think about, is this a card that you want to hold on to, or if this is a card that you're willing to give away and sell off. I think too many times I see people selling a card that they regret. So I really don't know you or how much you enjoy that card. So it's really dependent on you, right? Don't sell a card and you're gonna regret it later. So really focus and make sure why you're selling it, right? Are you selling it because you need the money? Or if not, then maybe it's a card you would like to hold on to your collection long term. You had a second portion in that question, which is, how do you know what things to keep sealed for years? You really don't. Most sealed stuff do just fine long term. I try to focus more on the more desirable sets, but certainly a lot of the stuff that I keep sealed is mainly for display purposes, right? I don't keep sealed just because they go up in value. I keep them sealed because I like them sealed. I like the way they look. I like them on my shelf. So that's why I keep it sealed. Certainly, once again, it's up to you. Your display, your rule, your collection. Do what you would like and have the most enjoyment out of it. Next up, we have TCG Authority, who asks, do you think the hobby will still be this strong in 5 to 10 years? This might be a long shot. I'm very optimistic, but I actually think the hobby will be a lot stronger in 5 to 10 years. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but in general, I honestly think Pokemon as an intellectual property and Pokemon cards as a hobby is still in its infancy. We have not really peaked as a hobby yet, not even close. There's still so much growth and potential in this hobby. There's so many people that are still joining the hobby, right? There are so many people who are age, under 20 who, once they have some expendable income, are going to definitely enjoy joining this hobby. So in general, I actually think Pokemon will continue to grow as an IP, and Pokemon card collecting, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. There might be small ebbs and flow, right? It's normal to see that in hobbies where there's period of growth and periods of decline, because that's how fads work, right? Pokemon card collecting is kind of a fad. There will be time when people are exiting the hobby, and there will be time when people are joining the hobby, like right now. But in general, I do think the hobby will continue to grow stronger over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think we peaked at all. That's why I tell people there's never been a better time to join Pokemon card collecting. It's a lot of fun. The community is very receptive. It's very welcoming. And it's honestly one of the most rewarding hobby I've ever done, and I really enjoy it. That's why I keep doing it. Next up, we have Siva, who asks, hey, with so many variations in style and form over the past 25 years, do you have a favorite art style illustrator in Pokemon cards? And I do. I have two really favorite artists. one is Koki Saito. He does all of the Pikachu promo cards pretty much, and they're all really gorgeous. Koki Saito did all of the Poncho Pikachu. He did Mario Pikachu. He does some really amazing artwork like the Crystal Charizard. That was one of his work. Really great card. I also really like Naoki Saito. Naoki does a lot of the full art trainer cards, and they are all really gorgeous. He does the popular Lily card, he does Lycia, he does Green's Exploration, Blue's Tactics, Red's Challenge, a ton of really gorgeous full art trainer cards with so many variations. What are some of the kinds that I don't like so much? Some of the kinds I don't like, I really don't like the CG art style. And a big reason for that is I honestly think it's not as appealing as hand-drawn art. Some of the most original Pokemon cards are really timeless because they were done in sort of a watercolor style, and that's going to be gorgeous forever. The problem with CG art is that over time they actually look worse, right? Because as the years go by, CG style just loses its appeal as you get better and better computer generated artwork. That's why I try not to collect a lot of CG cards. I think the CG cards actually do worse over time rather than doing better. And I would like for the Pokemon company to move away from CG art and really focus on just the hand-drawn art style. And I think that would be much better than going with the CG art. Next up, we have Steve, who asks, do you believe it's better to have a diverse portfolio or go all in on one subsection of the hobby? For example, investing all your money on Shining Legends or a specific card. That might be a little bit too niche if you want to just invest in one specific set or one very specific card, right? You might want to open up your scope a little bit, but still keep your scope narrow. And what I mean by that is you got to find something in the hobby that you can become an expert in. Maybe you are a Gyarados collector. Maybe you're a 4-art trainer collector. Maybe you're into Gold Star or vintage cards or Wizard of the Coast card or E-Series. Whatever it is, you have to find something for you to really specialize in. And I think that is important. You can have a diverse portfolio, but you also should be an expert in one area of the hobby. Honestly, there's so many Pokemon cards out there, you're most likely not going to be able to become an expert at everything. There's just too many knowledge gaps, right? I don't know the prices for most cards on the back of my head. There are some that I do, and that's because they're in my area of expertise, right? When I look at an eBay listing for Pikachu promo cards, I can usually tell if they're a good deal or not right away because that's an area that I'm very familiar with. You don't want to be in an area where you're not familiar with because then you're just constantly doing research, you're constantly doing price check. You're not going to know where the prices for all of the cards inside your collections are going if they're really diverse. It's kind of easier to narrow your scope down into one area. It'll just make your collection go a lot more smooth if you can narrow your scope down a little bit. Next, we have Benjamin, who asks, what is the most affordable way to acquire vintage cards? My fiance and I started collecting a few months ago, right before the huge boom, and we both are now just finishing up college. We want to invest and collect, but it's hard given our financial situation. Great question, Benjamin. That is another budgeting question. And one of the things that I do recommend is using your time as a resource rather than money, because if you don't have a lot of money, you're gonna have to use some other skills. And one of those things that you have that you can spend is time. By spending time, you might be able to find better eBay auction listings, stuff that people aren't looking for. You're able to look up at a lot more listings. You're able to use a lot more apps. You're able to pretty much bargain hunt a lot better than most people. A lot of people, especially those with money, are not bargain hunting. They're simply finding whatever listing is available and picking that up. But if you don't have that luxury, then you're gonna have to put in the extra time. Honestly, vintage cards are still very affordable. For the community portfolio, I think we spent $100 to purchase some Skyridge cards, and that was a great purchase. Those cards have gone up so much in value. And honestly, it was really surprising to me how cheap some of those cards. Like I think that there was a Skyridge Eevee where we purchased it for $3. Super affordable cards. Purchasing vintage cards does not mean you have to break the bank. There are definitely a lot of actually really affordable vintage cards if you're willing to just look around and find some hidden gems. I'm not saying you're going to be able to buy first edition base set Charizard, but there are still great cards out there that are vintage that are very affordable. Next up, we have Kois, who asks, how do you start Pokemon TCG hobby the right way? What do you recommend to buy first? There's no real right or wrong way to start collecting. You can start collecting as simply as going to your local retail store, buying whatever pack is on the shelf, opening up, finding some rare cards, sleeving them, putting them inside your binder. That's the simplest way to start. You can certainly go some more obscure way, like bargaining hunting, buying graded cards, buying vintage cards. There's lots of ways to approach it, and it's really up to you and what you enjoy. I know lots of people who don't enjoy opening packs. They hate opening packs. They just buy singles and sets that they enjoy, and that's all they do. They don't even open up a single pack, but they have a really solid Pokemon card collection. So I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong way to approach. It really depends on you, your budget, and what you enjoy. There's lots of different ways to approach it. You can go the vintage route, you can go the modern route. Honestly, there's great different approaches, and there's plenty of opportunities no matter which way you're looking in the hobby right now. Next up, we have Kenny, who says, hi Jake, what do you think about the influence YouTubers and PokeTubers have on the hype of today's market? There is a lot of talk about people being led into different markets because of social media hype. We've all seen the recent spike in full art trainer cards following your recent video on full art trainers. Thank you for the time, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I honestly really like my full art trainer video. I thought that I got the point really well across in 9 minutes. Not a lot of people disagree with the video. They disagree with the side effect of the video, but in 9 minutes I pretty much cover the history of trainer cards, why for the longest time they've done really poorly, and why over the last 4 or 5 years we've seen full art trainer cards evolve into their own portion of the hobby. And like I said, lots of people agree with the video. They don't like the side effect with it, but that's not a reason for me to not make a video, right? That's just not a good reason. I'm struggling to purchase a lot of full art trainer cards right now as well with how the prices have been, but I'm going to be patient. My full art trainer collection is going to take years to really accumulate into something special. But yeah, what do I think about the influence YouTubers and PokeTubers have? I think it's okay to a certain extent. Censorship is not the right answer. If someone has a platform and they're willing to preach something, then that's totally fine, right? There's always going to be someone preaching something. You can't ignore it, or you can't remove it from the hobby. Even your friendly neighborhood collector, he's more than willing to voice his opinion and tell you what he thinks is good. It's up to you if you follow his opinion or not. Everyone's going to be constantly recommending something or showing something off. It's really up to you how much you're willing to be influenced by it. If you agree with their opinion or you agree with their insight, then maybe that's something that you would like to go down, right? I don't want to go down the route of saying censorship is the right answer. I don't think that's the right answer. People should be allowed to promote and enjoy the hobby and show off their collection and have a following if they want to go down that path. Everyone's up to their own opinion and rights, so you can follow whoever you want. You can disagree with my opinion, you can agree with them. I am totally fine with all of it, but I want there to be more conversation and discourse in the hobby in general. People should be having these conversations about what's good, what's hot, what's right, what's wrong. It's just good for the hobby to have conversation in general. So I think it's totally fine if there's some level of influence. I certainly don't want it to be like full on shilling. I know that can be extremely dangerous, and that's a line that I don't think I'll ever cross. That's why I try to be as diplomatic as I can with my own videos. Next up, we have ECX Passion, who asks, how did you get started? Games, anime, cards, what was some of your very first items? Like most people, I had some Pokemon trading cards when I was very little. They're all gone now. I don't know what happened to them, lost them a long time ago. But yeah, ever since then, I've built up my collection over the last couple of years, and I really enjoy the hobby in general. Some of the very first games I played were Gen 1 and Gen 2 games. I really enjoy Red and Blue. I really enjoy Silver and Gold. One of the first games that I ever beat was like Silver when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I totally loved it. That's why I have some of those things from my childhood. I just am really attached to them. Yeah, what am I into? Honestly, I had a little bit of everything. I played the games, I watched the cartoons, and I collected the cards. So that's why I'm still into it nowadays. And I think that's why one of the reasons that the hobbies can continue to grow is because kids right now are doing the same thing. They're collecting the cards, they're playing the games, and they're watching the anime. So yeah, these people are going to continue to join the hobby as they grow older. Georgie asks, what is the best way to organize your cards by collection or by Pokemon type? Dude, I don't know anyone that organizes their collection by Pokemon type. Do you mean like you organize it by fire type, water type? I don't know anyone that does that. If you do that, you're kind of weird, Georgie, but that's up to you. A lot of people do sort it by collection. What they do is they sort it by set, right? You have your Shining Legends, you have your Hidden Fate set. Sorting it by set is pretty normal. You can also sort it by year. A lot of time, my bulk is just all over the place. I honestly need to organize a lot of my bulk cards a lot better. A lot of people also ask, what do I do with my bulk? So maybe we'll jump into that. My bulk, I usually just keep around because you never know what cards might go up in terms of value. Surprisingly, I've been going back to a lot of my old bulk boxes and just pulling out Holo XY Evolution cards because Holo XY Evolution cards are worth a lot of money right now. So I'm just pulling out gems from my bulk. And you might see that in the future as well, where something that's not popular right now might be really in demand in 2 or 3 years' time. You just don't know. So yeah, honestly, what's the best way to organize your collection? Probably by the set or the year, whichever you would prefer. Next, we have Silver Phantom who asks, other than Pokemon cards or the video games, what other items are good to collect for investments? The games and the cards are definitely the peak of Pokemon collecting pretty much. You're not going to find much else below that. There are a couple of other items that are very desirable. Some of it is the plushies. Surprisingly, there's a lot of Pokemon plushies that go for hundreds and thousands of dollars. Some of the older ones are really, really expensive. But Pokemon plushies, it's its own thing. It's not something that I can really delve into. Some of the other stuff that people have been collecting are things like the Topps cards, the Cardass cards, which aren't the exact same as the Pokemon cards, but are still fairly collectible. There's a small group of people that are really into collecting the Pokemon coins, and that might be a thing in the future. But in general, outside of the cards and the video games, there's a bunch of other Pokemon related items, but most of them are still pretty broad. You know, none of it is really jumped up in terms of value outside of the cards and the games. Mohammed asks, hi Jake, do you think there will be a Pokemon that will be the next Charizard for younger generation of Poke fans, say in 15 or 20 years? If yes, which Pokemon do you think is worth taking Charizard's spot? The only one I can think of is maybe Pikachu. Even some people have thought that Greninja might be the Charizard of the future. I have my doubts. It might be possible that Charizard is never overtaken, and this is super common in other hobbies as well, right? Because look at other things like baseball cards, right? Kids growing up now are still gonna want a Honus Wagner or a Babe Ruth card, even though those people are way, way in the past, because the kids who are collecting baseball cards are gonna enjoy the top of the line cards, even if they don't have the same attachment to the baseball players of the past eras. Same with comic books or other stuff. Batman and Superman were the hottest things in comic books 80 years ago, and they're still the hottest thing. So maybe Charizard will always be the hottest thing. It's very difficult to uproot that. Like even young kids today, like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds who are collecting Pokemon cards, they still want a Charizard card. And that's not something that I think is going to change anytime soon. Charizard will probably continue to be the mascot of the trading card at the very least. Next up, we have William, who asks, are you scared Pokemon prices will crash? No, I am not scared of Pokemon card prices crashing at all. A lot of my collection is things that I would never sell regardless of what price they are, regardless of any price climbs or dips. My collection is my collection. It's not something that I would really ever sell. So that's a big thing that I don't have to worry about right away, right? If it's investment, if it's something that you're looking to sell down the line, you might be sweating if there's a crash coming because that's actually your livelihood. But a lot of my collection are pretty much items that I have for the purpose of display. They're like paintings or artworks or my furniture. They're not things that I plan on ever selling, so I'm not really worried about a price crash. I'm actually fine with a price crash. And this is very similar to other things like the stock market as well. When there's a dip in the price, that's not a time to be scared. That's the time when you should be looking for opportunities. If prices crash, then I'm going to be really focusing in on what items are the most undervalued, right? I'm going to be really focusing on purchasing more rather than worrying about selling off anything. If there's a price crash, I'm probably not selling anything, but I'm probably going to be buying a lot more stuff because, well, it's a discount cheap price, so why not? So yeah, I'm actually not afraid of a Pokemon price crash. I honestly think that'd be totally fine. It's just a realm of opportunity and something that I would totally be okay with. Next up, we have Big Smiley, who asks, what do you think is the best centralized community for Pokemon TCG collecting, not necessarily playing? The best community for collecting is probably going to be the Elite Forum. It's been that way for a long time, and I don't think it's ever going to stop. The Elite Forum is honestly so streamlined. There's no BS. It's so professional. They focus so much on just the cards and nothing really else. If you want to go a little bit more Wild West, there's certainly the Reddit. And if you want to go really Wild West, there's the Discord groups, which are pretty much a total like wild time. So it really is up to you, like what level you really want to be with. You know, if you want to be like the most professional, then there's like the Elite Forum, there's the subreddits, but there's also a ton of different Discord groups. So it's up to you what cup of tea you're into for Pokemon card collecting, because there's a ton of different communities that you can definitely join. Next up, we have Alex, who asks, what are your thoughts on graded special delivery Pikachu prices? A PSA 10 is currently over $2,000 and has 5 days left. Yeah, boy, have you guys seen the prices on the special delivery Pikachu? No one's blaming me for that. But yeah, those special delivery Pikachu cards have really climbed in price. I'm gonna assume that it's most likely because the price point of $100, all those cards got scooped up, and without any more additional supply, the prices are just gonna climb, because now the only people who are selling them are the people who can afford it, or people who are willing to sell, and you're just gonna have less and less people that want to sell as the price continues to climb. But yeah, special delivery Pikachu is astonishingly climbing right now. It's pretty insane. A PSA 10 is currently going for over $2,000. I think that's actually kind of justified. The special delivery Pikachu is extremely difficult to get a PSA 10 of. If you get one straight out of a pack, there's probably about a 10% chance, maybe even lower, like maybe around 5 to 8% chance that it's going to be gem mint. Most likely it's not going to be gem mint, because the card, for better or worse, goes through a lot of wear or tear before it gets to your house. So I think it's justified for a PSA 10 to be over $2,000. It's just supply and demand. There's a lot of demand for it, and the supply is not going up at all. So that's why we're seeing these price climbs. Last question, we have Rick, who asks, hey Jake, which cards do you like collecting more, Japanese or English cards? That really depends. My favorite cards are all Japanese cards, which are the Screen promos, Mario Pikachu, Poncho Pikachu. Those are my favorite cards right now, and they're all Japanese cards. But if they existed in English, I might like those more. The big reason why I collect a lot of Japanese cards is that they have the coolest art design, but they're all Japanese exclusive, If I could get them in English, I would prefer the English version. So for Japanese, I really enjoy collecting the promo cards. For the booster packs and the sets, I much prefer collecting the English cards. Whenever there's an English option available, I'll pick the English option. But for a lot of the Japanese promos, they're Japanese exclusives, so I get what I get and I don't throw a fit. So that's what I collect the most, Japanese promos and English sets. All right, everybody, that's the end of today's video. I hope you guys found it insightful. If you did not get your question answered, I will most likely answer it in the comments sometime in the next couple of days. Give me some time. There's a lot of questions to go over, but I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. If you found any of this interesting, if you have other additional questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I do read every single comment, and I do try my best to answer every single time I see a question. So let me know what your thoughts are, and I'm more than happy to help you out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.